There's a psalm that opens the gates of money faster than any bank on earth. For 7 days, if you speak it as I will show you, divine supply will move swiftly, silently, without struggle straight into your hands. I've seen it work for those with nothing but faith, and I've watched money appear from directions they never imagined. You see, this isn't about religion, it's about spiritual law. And for the next 7 days, that law will work for you. Tone: calm, magnetic, filled with quiet authority, slight pause after bank on earth to let curiosity land. In this lesson, I will teach you how to use one single psalm, the Psalm of Provision, to call money into form by divine law. You will learn to speak the word that multiplies supply, dissolves debt, and restores circulation to every area of your life. You'll see why most prayers for money fail, and how 7 days of right speech can reverse years of limitation. You won't be repeating words in vain, you'll be commanding the substance of spirit to flow. By the end of this video, you will know how to speak in harmony with God's own law of prosperity, and once you do, you will never speak in lack again. I know the feeling of waiting for money that never seems to come, watching bills pile up, praying for relief, wondering if heaven has gone silent. But heaven never ignores faith, it only waits for the right vibration. Most people beg for supply, yet their words carry fear, not power. The psalm I'm about to give you corrects that vibration. It trains your words to speak with divine certainty. When spoken daily for 7 days, it clears the channel between you and your good. This is not superstition, it's spiritual science. The same invisible law that brings the tides, that makes seeds grow, that orders the stars, also orders your prosperity. And that law will respond to your voice when you speak this psalm. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the psalm that releases divine supply faster than anything I've ever witnessed. You will learn how to speak it not as repetition, but as command. We will explore its hidden pattern, its rhythm, and the 7-day cycle that activates its power. You will hear the testimony of those who used it, men and women who had nothing but their word and faith, and who found their good arriving overnight. We will talk about the spiritual law that governs this psalm, the law of circulation, the law of gratitude, and the law of divine preparation. By the end of this teaching, you will not only know the words, you will feel the vibration of wealth moving toward you. So stay with me, because 7 days from now, you will not be wondering where your supply is, you will be watching it flow. There's something most people completely miss when they read the Psalms. They see them as poetry, as comfort, as prayers to calm the heart, but not as spiritual commands that move the invisible into form. Yet that's exactly what they are. Every line of scripture is a divine decree hidden in rhythm, vibration, and sacred sound. The words were never meant to be whispered in fear or recited in routine, they were meant to be spoken as law. When I discovered this, the entire way I read the Psalms changed. They stopped being words about God and became words from God, laws that govern health, harmony, and yes, even money. The psalm I'm about to share with you is one of those laws in motion, one of those verses that doesn't just talk about supply but opens it. It is the psalm that breaks the illusion of lack, restores flow, and calls money from the invisible storehouse of spirit straight into visible form. Now, this next part might sound simple, but simplicity is divine power disguised. The psalm I speak of is Psalm 23. You've heard it countless times. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But have you ever spoken it not as comfort but as command? Have you ever said it as one who knows that when you speak, law moves? That line is the entire principle of supply contained in one sentence. It declares, I am guided, guarded, and provided for. I do not chase good, it follows me. It's not a request, it's a decree of alignment. And when spoken for 7 consecutive days with unwavering faith, that decree reorders your world. Here's why. Every word we speak carries vibration. Words are not flat, they are alive. When you speak the word of truth, you vibrate in harmony with the very source that created the world. The Psalms were written in divine rhythm. Every repetition, every poetic cadence was designed to activate both sides of consciousness, the mind and the soul. When you speak them aloud, you're not simply repeating words, you're awakening energy, directing the invisible substance of life. Your voice is the conductor's baton, and the universe is the orchestra waiting for your cue. Let me show you how this works. Years ago, a woman came to me desperate and defeated. She had $8 left to her name, and fear had taken hold of her mind. She said, "Florence, I've tried everything. I've prayed, I've begged, I've done affirmations, but nothing works." I said, "You have spoken fear with more conviction than faith. Now you will speak truth." I gave her Psalm 23 and told her, "For 7 days, speak this aloud morning and night. Don't ask for money, declare your alignment with supply." She followed that instruction. On the 3rd day, she felt an unusual peace. On the 5th, she found herself thanking God before she saw any change. By the 7th day, she received unexpected money, a sum far beyond what she imagined. She came back radiant, saying, "It worked like magic." But I told her, it wasn't magic, it was law. You see, the moment you say, "I shall not want," you cut the root of fear. Want implies separation from your good, and separation is the great illusion. In divine mind, there is no want, there is only supply waiting for recognition. When you speak the psalm, you are recognizing that truth. You are saying, "The source and I are one. I am guided into prosperity, and I cannot be lost." 7 days is all it takes, because 7 is the number of divine completion. It's the pattern by which all creation unfolds. 7 days of creation, 7 notes in a scale, 7 colors in light. After 7 days of speaking truth, the new pattern is sealed in your consciousness, and your world must reflect it. Now, let's talk about the rhythm of these 7 days. On day 1, you speak to awaken faith. On day 2, you begin to feel peace. By day 3, resistance starts to crumble, old fears rise only to fall. By day 4, the atmosphere around you begins to shift, you feel lighter or freer. On day 5, the outer world starts to rearrange opportunities, invitations, ideas appear. By day 6, something moves in your heart, certainty. And on day 7, manifestation begins to show, often quietly, naturally, as if it had been waiting all along. This is not coincidence, it's law unfolding in order. And here's what most people never understand. You don't repeat the psalm to convince God, you repeat it to convince yourself. Repetition is how you retrain the mind. The subconscious accepts as true whatever it hears often enough. It cannot distinguish between fact and faith. So when you speak words of truth for 7 consecutive days, you override years of fearful thinking. You create a new groove in consciousness, and prosperity flows through that groove like a river through its channel. I remember one of my students, a man burdened with debt, saying, "Florence, I've said the words, but I don't feel anything." I told him, "Then speak until you do." Feeling follows faith, not the other way around. He obeyed. By the end of the week, his entire attitude had changed. He spoke with gratitude. He walked with peace. Within days, payments began to arrive, and one of his largest debts was unexpectedly canceled. The words had done their work. They had turned thought into form, sound into substance. Now I want to show you something even deeper. Every psalm carries a hidden frequency, and Psalm 23 vibrates with the energy of gratitude. Gratitude is the great magnet of supply. It is the acknowledgement that the good you desire already exists. Gratitude turns invisible substance into visible blessing. When you say, "My cup runneth over," you are not describing your life as it is, you are declaring the truth of divine overflow, and the universe, obedient to law, must match that vibration. Gratitude is faster than labor, stronger than worry, and more certain than logic. It is the language of faith. So here's what I ask you to do. For 7 days, speak Psalm 23 aloud each morning and night. Do not rush, feel each phrase as though you were feeding your soul. When you say, "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures," feel peace replacing tension. When you say, "He restoreth my soul," feel your faith rise. When you say, "My cup runneth over," smile because the law has already obeyed. You are not trying to make something happen, you are witnessing what already is. Now, some of you may ask, "Florence, why 7 days? Why not 1? Because truth must be impressed upon consciousness until the subconscious believes it. It's not the number that carries the power, it's the rhythm. 7 days establishes the pattern, like a melody that the soul begins to hum on its own. When that pattern is set, money begins to appear naturally, without strain, without chasing, without fear. And as you speak, you will notice something. You begin to relax. The tension of trying vanishes. You stop asking, "When will it come?" because you know it's already on its way. You stop looking at your bank account in panic and begin to bless it instead. That is when the shift happens, when your word moves from your mouth to your heart, from vibration to manifestation. So remember this: the psalm is not a wish, it is a decree. Each line is an affirmation of divine order, each phrase a command to substance. When you speak it in faith, the invisible goes to work immediately. Every time you say, "I shall not want," the law hears, "I am satisfied." Every time you say, "My cup runneth over," the law hears, "Multiply." Heaven doesn't delay, it responds. For the next 7 days, speak your psalm with power, speak it with joy, speak it as though the whole of heaven is listening, because it is. And as you do, remember this truth: you are not waiting for supply, supply is waiting for your word. Now that you understand the psalm as a living law and your word as the command that moves substance, let us go deeper. Because it's not enough to speak the word, you must also learn how the law of circulation works through it. Money flows like a river, and your word is what keeps that river moving. Let's open that current next. Here's something most people completely miss about money. It isn't a thing you earn or chase or deserve, it's a flow of energy, a current of divine substance, always moving, always alive. Money is spirit in motion, taking form to serve you, to clothe you, to feed you, to fulfill the divine law of supply. The same power that moves the ocean tide moves through your finances. The same circulation that sends breath in and out of your body sends money in and out of your life. And when that flow stops, when the river runs dry, it isn't because God withheld, it's because fear built a dam. Fear is the great stopper of circulation. The moment you worry, you tighten the current. The moment you say, "I don't have enough," you cut the flow in half. But the moment you speak truth, the moment you declare, "My cup runneth over," the current surges again, unstoppable, generous, precise. That is the law of circulation. What you speak in faith must return multiplied. You see, this is what I call divine arithmetic, God's perfect system of balance. You give and you receive. You bless and you are blessed. You circulate love, and love surrounds you. You circulate fear, and fear multiplies. Every thought, every word, every emotion is a coin you spend in the invisible marketplace of law. When you speak the psalm daily, you are not only calling money forth, you are restoring the entire rhythm of divine flow. You are opening your inner gates so that spirit can circulate freely again through your affairs. I often tell my students, you cannot take in air unless you exhale. You cannot receive a new blessing while clinging to an old one. This is where so many fail. They pray for new good while holding tight to fear, resentment, or guilt. The law of circulation cannot move through a closed heart. The psalm teaches non-resistance, not through effort but through faith. When you say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," you are declaring that you are guided by abundance itself, that the energy of supply flows through you like water through an open channel. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew who held tightly to every penny. She was afraid of spending, afraid of giving, afraid of losing. She said to me, "Florence, I can't let go because I'll never get it back." I said, "Then you have turned money into your master instead of your servant." I taught her the law of circulation. I said, "Every time you spend, say this: every dollar I spend blesses and returns to me, multiplied under grace." She looked at me skeptically but promised to try. Within 2 weeks, she came to me radiant. She said, "I've been spending in faith, and everything I release returns tenfold." The fear had left her, and money flowed again. It wasn't the money that changed, it was her vibration. She had stepped back into circulation. The same is true for every soul listening to me now. You cannot stop the flow of life and still expect prosperity. You cannot speak of shortage and still live in abundance. When you speak words of faith, the dam breaks. You feel it, don't you? That quiet ease that comes when you stop trying to control everything? That is the river moving again. Now let's talk about what happens when you speak the psalm with awareness. Each line acts as a spiritual key, opening a gate through which divine energy moves. "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." That's the relaxation of the mind. When you relax, your energy expands and flow returns. "He leadeth me beside the still waters." That's emotional calm, the peace that restores circulation. "He restoreth my soul." That's spiritual renewal, the power that replenishes the inner current. And when you say, "My cup runneth over," that's the overflow, the abundance released when all resistance dissolves. Money follows attention. It listens for command. If you constantly tell it, "I never have enough," it obeys you faithfully and withholds. If you bless it, speak to it as a living servant of spirit, it obeys that, too, it multiplies. That's why I say, talk to your money as you would talk to a friend. Say, "You are divine substance, you always return multiplied. You bless me as I bless others." This isn't fantasy, it's law. The vibration of love attracts more to love. The vibration of fear repels what it clings to. I once had a student, a musician, who hadn't had work in months. He loved his art but feared his bills. I told him to begin each day by saying aloud Psalm 23 and to bless his money with gratitude, even the coins in his pocket. I said, "Don't see lack, see circulation." He laughed at first but obeyed. On the fourth day, he was called to perform in a concert he hadn't even auditioned for. The payment he received cleared his debts and left him with extra to give. He said, "Florence, it felt like the universe suddenly remembered me." I told him, "No, my dear, you remembered yourself. You remembered that you are one with the source that never forgets." This is what the psalm does. It restores memory. It reminds you that wealth is not earned, it's inherited. It belongs to you by divine right. But you must speak the word that keeps it moving. You must let go of fear and allow flow. You must give as freely as you wish to receive. Now, I can hear some of you saying, "But Florence, I can't give when I barely have." And I say to you, that's exactly when you must give. Giving is not about the amount, it's about the faith behind it. When you give from fear, you reduce. When you give from faith, you multiply. If all you have is a kind word, give that. If all you have is a smile, give that. The law sees no difference between money and energy, it counts only vibration. The universe is a mirror, reflecting whatever you send out. When you speak lack, it says, "As you wish." When you speak abundance, it says, "And so it is." This is why the psalm must be spoken daily, not as repetition, but as rhythm. Every day you speak it, you realign the current. Every morning, you open the gate a little wider. By the seventh day, the river has become unstoppable. Now, I want to show you the deeper law within the psalm, the law of gratitude as circulation. Gratitude is both the outflow and the inflow of divine energy. When you are grateful, you give acknowledgement, and acknowledgement multiplies what it touches. Gratitude is the voice of flow saying, "More, please." It is the spiritual magnet that draws everything good into your hands. So, for these 7 days, I want you to do this. Every time money enters your life, no matter how small, bless it. Say, "You are divine substance, and I am thankful." Every time you spend, bless it again. You go out to bless and return multiplied. And every time you think of your finances, speak the psalm aloud. "The Lord is my shepherd, I am and shall not want." This will keep the current strong and steady. And remember this truth above all else. Money doesn't come from people, it comes through them. People are channels, God is the source. When you depend on one channel, you block the others. But when you depend on God, every door becomes a channel. The psalm reconnects you with that source. It reminds you that the power that brought manna in the wilderness, that filled the nets of the fishermen, that multiplied loaves and fishes, is the same power circulating through your life right now. So don't beg the river to flow, step into it. Don't plead for supply, speak it. The law of circulation never stops. It only waits for your permission, and your permission is your word. Speak as one who commands the current. Say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Feel it, believe it, and watch as the invisible begins to move. Now that the river of divine supply has begun to move through your life, you will notice something interesting sometimes. Just as the current begins to flow, resistance rises. Appearances may test your faith. Things might seem to fall apart right before the miracle arrives. Don't be troubled, that's the purification stage. In the next section, I will show you how to stand through those 7 days when faith is tested, and how to turn every challenge into proof that your prosperity is on its way. There is always a moment, once the word has been spoken and the current begins to move, when the appearance of contradiction arrives. It is the law's way of asking, do you really believe what you just said? It happens to every soul who dares to speak truth into form. The moment you declare, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," the old vibration of lack begins to crumble. And when it crumbles, it can look like chaos. It can look like bills piling up, opportunities slipping away, people misunderstanding you, doors closing that once seemed open. But these are not signs of failure, they are signs of movement. They are the proof that the old consciousness is dying and that divine order is rearranging the outer world to match your new declaration. You are not being punished, you are being purified. You are walking through the sacred test of faith. This test is holy ground. It is the invisible furnace where the old you burns away, and the new you rises clothed in power. Every spiritual demonstration passes through this fire. Faith is not proven in comfort, it is proven in contradiction. When everything seems still, you can afford to believe. But when the storm rises, that is when you must stand. The psalm is not meant to shield you from appearances. It is meant to anchor you in truth until appearances yield. So when you feel that tension, when the mind begins to question, do not say, "Why is this happening?" Say, "Ah, my word is working. Let me tell you a story." A woman once came to me, trembling with fear. She had been affirming abundance for days, and then suddenly her employer announced layoffs. She thought the law had betrayed her. She said, "Florence, I've done everything right, but now I might lose my job." I said, "My dear, this is your demonstration beginning. The old channel must close for the new one to open. Don't hold on to the door that's shutting, bless it, and stand still." She obeyed. She continued to speak her psalm. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," and refused to fear. Within a week, she was offered a new position, one that paid more, demanded less, and gave her peace. The layoff wasn't punishment. It was promotion disguised as loss. That's how divine order works. It removes before it replaces, it clears before it fills, it ends before it begins. You must remember this. The invisible is always ahead of the visible. When you speak the word, it moves through spirit first, then mind, then matter. The outer world is slow to catch up, and in that space of transition, fear tries to return. That's the test to hold your vibration steady when the senses shout impossible. The psalm becomes your anchor in that storm. Every time you feel doubt, repeat, "I shall not want." Every time the mind whispers lack, declare, "My cup runneth over." Faith is not denial, it is insistence on the higher truth. You are not ignoring appearances, you are commanding them to align. And you must understand, the greater your desire, the greater the purification. If you have spoken a mighty word, the universe will shake to make room for it. The old structures of fear must collapse so that abundance can stand where lack once lived. Don't confuse shaking with breaking. The earthquake doesn't destroy, it shifts. When the ground moves, it's the sign that something deep beneath is changing forever. I once taught a man who had been struggling with debt. He affirmed daily that his supply was endless, and just as he began to feel hope, he received notice that his largest payment was due immediately. He panicked, came to me and said, "Florence, why now?" I was beginning to believe. I smiled and said, "This is your test. Say the word and stand still." He did. He walked home repeating, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." That night, a friend he hadn't spoken to in years called him and said, "I felt compelled to help you. Do you need anything?" The exact amount he needed was given to him under grace. The moment he passed the test, the supply appeared. Faith had done its perfect work. You see, the universe always sends a mirror to show you whether your word has settled in your consciousness or only on your lips. If you speak wealth but still tremble at a bill, your vibration hasn't anchored yet. But once you can look at the same bill and say calmly, "This too is part of my blessing," you have passed the test. The bill becomes a symbol of trust, not trouble. It reminds you that the channel through which your supply flows may change, but the source never does. During the 7-day psalm practice, you may feel the test arrive around the 4th or 5th day. That's when the old patterns start to lose grip, and fear fights back for attention. Don't argue with it. Don't wrestle with appearances. Bless them. Bless the noise as proof that your word has stirred the unseen. Then, return to your psalm. The rhythm of those words will steady your energy again. "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters." The still waters are peace, the peace that proves you've stopped striving. Once you reach that stillness, Everything begins to rearrange itself naturally, like dust settling after a wind. Now, here's something you must know. Praise is your strongest weapon during the test. When fear tries to rise, praise louder. Say, "Thank you, God, that my good is unfolding in perfect ways." Praise confuses the vibration of lack because lack feeds on attention. When you praise, you lift the frequency so high that fear can't breathe in it. The moment you feel gratitude for what hasn't yet appeared, it rushes to appear. Gratitude is the magnet that pulls miracles into view. I remember when I faced my own test. Years ago, I had spoken a word for perfect supply to expand my teaching work, and almost instantly, my lectures were canceled, my classes emptied, my income ceased. For a moment, fear whispered, "You've lost everything." But I remembered the law and said, "If this is the test, I will pass it with joy." I kept teaching to empty rooms, speaking as though they were full. I said my psalm aloud each night with gratitude. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." Within a short time, invitations came, larger than before, and every seat was filled. What seemed like failure was the universe clearing space for expansion. That is the rhythm of divine order tearing down to build up higher. So, if you find yourself in the middle of your 7-day test, if you see the storm rising just as the promise begins to glimmer, remember this truth. The storm is not your enemy, it's your initiation. It's the moment you step out of theory and into power. Don't beg God to calm the sea, stand in your boat and speak peace. Say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Speak it until the waves remember who you are. Speak it until the wind becomes your servant. And when the test passes, and it always passes, you'll look back and see that what you feared was never real. It was only shadow. It had no substance, no staying power. You'll laugh, as I have many times, and say, "I was walking through the valley of the shadow of lack, and I feared no evil, for thou art with me." The valley is shadow, your word is light. The shadow flees the moment the light speaks. Now that you understand the purpose of the test and how to stand through it, we move into the next revelation, the place beyond testing, where faith no longer trembles and money no longer hides. This is where you stop chasing prosperity and begin to live in its rhythm. It is the art of staying in flow, the practice of effortless abundance, and the realization that divine supply was never outside you, it was always within. Let us walk together into that harmony now. There comes a time, once the tests are behind you and the fear begins to fade, when something within you shifts forever. You stop trying to make money appear, and you start realizing that it was never missing. You stop pleading for opportunities, and you begin to see that every day is already rich with them. You stop measuring your life by what you have or don't have, and you start measuring it by the peace that lives behind everything. That is the rhythm of divine supply, the quiet, steady pulse of spirit moving through your days, the inner knowing that you are never without because you are one with the source of all that is. It is a rhythm that can't be forced or faked. It comes only after faith has been tested and proven. It arrives like the stillness after a storm, when the waters stop thrashing and begin to shimmer with light. In that stillness, you finally understand that abundance isn't something you create, it's something you remember. You see, most people live by struggle because they live by separation. They believe that God is somewhere far away, deciding who gets what, when, and how much. They think they must hustle for every blessing, fight for every opportunity, and beg for every provision. And so they exhaust themselves chasing what is already theirs by divine right. But when you begin to live in rhythm with divine law, you stop chasing. You stop running after things and start allowing them to come. You speak your word, you hold your faith, and you let the law do the work. You become like the earth in spring still, receptive, ready to blossom. You know that the seed is already in the soil, and that your only task is to keep the soil rich with faith and watered with gratitude. I often tell my students, you can't speak abundance while living in hurry. Hurry is fear disguised as effort. When you hurry, you declare, "I don't believe time will be enough. I don't believe supply will be enough." But when you are calm, when you move at the pace of faith, you declare, "Everything I need will arrive exactly when it should." That calmness is your magnetic field. It draws your good without struggle. The psalm says, "He leadeth me beside the still waters." The still waters represent divine rhythm, the quiet flow of good without anxiety, without strain. Still waters do not mean stagnant waters. They move, but they move without chaos. That is how prosperity flows when you are aligned with spirit, effortlessly, continuously, joyfully. There was a man once who came to me after years of fighting life. He had clawed his way through business, competition, worry, sleepless nights. He said, "Florence, I've worked harder than anyone I know, but I'm always one step behind." I said to him, "Stop working so hard in the wrong direction. Stop fighting the river, float." He didn't understand at first. He said, "Do you mean do nothing?" I said, "I mean stop struggling. Work from inspiration, not desperation." I told him to start each morning with this affirmation: I live in the substance of abundance. Everything I do prospers, because divine intelligence works through me. Within weeks, his life began to shift. He didn't get new opportunities immediately, rather, his energy changed. He began to speak with calm confidence instead of panic. And soon, opportunities started appearing, effortless connections, divine coincidences, open doors he hadn't even knocked on. He came back and said, "I feel like something invisible is helping me." I said, "It always was. You just stopped pushing it away." Living in divine rhythm means you are no longer moved by appearances. You bless what is before your eyes, knowing that behind every visible condition is the invisible perfection waiting to show itself. You no longer complain about bills, you bless them, knowing they represent circulation. You no longer fear spending, you bless your money, knowing it returns multiplied under grace. You no longer worry about competition, you bless others' success, knowing that their good can only increase your own. In divine rhythm, there is no envy, no resentment, no comparison, only flow. Gratitude becomes your heartbeat. You thank before you receive because you know that the act of thanking is itself the receipt. You say, "Thank you, God, that my supply is already here, even if my eyes have not yet seen it." Gratitude is not politeness, it is spiritual recognition. It says, "I know this is already done." Every time you give thanks, you vibrate in harmony with divine substance. Every time you complain, you vibrate in discord. Gratitude multiplies, complaint divides. It's that simple. So I tell my students to give thanks constantly. Thank for what you have. Thank for what is coming. Thank for what is leaving. Even loss can be blessed, because it always clears the way for greater good. You might say, "Florence, that sounds easy when things are going well." And I say, that's when it matters least. Gratitude is tested when appearances contradict it. Can you thank God while walking through the valley? Can you praise the light when you still see shadows? If you can, you are unstoppable. Gratitude in adversity is the highest faith. It tells the universe, I trust the process, even in silence. That trust is the bridge between prayer and manifestation. Now let's talk about speech. For speech is the way you stay in rhythm. Every word you speak either harmonizes or disrupts the divine current. When you speak from worry, you create ripples of resistance. When you speak from confidence, you create ripples of manifestation. Your daily declarations are not empty, they are tuning forks for reality. Every morning, speak your psalm as command. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Every evening, close your day with release. Thank you, God, that all is well and working together for my good. During the day, guard your language. Do not say, I can't afford this. Say, it's coming easily under grace. Do not say, money is tight. Say, money flows freely to me now. These small shifts in speech keep your vibration aligned with truth. The tongue is the rudder of the ship, it determines the direction of the voyage. The more you practice this, the lighter you become. You will find yourself laughing at things that once made you anxious. You'll feel calm in situations that used to shake you. That's the sign of alignment, peace, without evidence. The moment you feel peace, manifestation has already begun. Peace is proof that the law is in operation. You don't wait for the outcome to feel peace, you feel peace, and the outcome follows. Let me share another story. There was a woman who owed a large sum of money, and every day she panicked. She said, Florence, I affirm, I speak the psalm, but I still feel afraid. I told her, don't fight fear, replace it. Every time fear comes, say aloud, God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly under grace. Say it until the fear can't find a seat. She obeyed. She said it all day, even whispering it under her breath. One morning she woke up, and the fear was gone. That same afternoon, A client she hadn't heard from in years called and settled a long overdue payment. The fear had blocked her channel, and faith had cleared it. She said to me, "It felt like magic." I said, "No, my dear, it was divine rhythm restored." When you live in rhythm, miracles become ordinary. You stop calling them miracles and start calling them law fulfilled. Life begins to feel like music, sometimes soft, sometimes strong, always harmonious. You start to sense when something is off in your vibration, and instead of panicking, you correct it with your words, your gratitude, your faith. You no longer need to wait for outer signs, you feel the inner signal. That is the art of living in divine supply, attunement. You are the instrument, and spirit is the musician. When you stay tuned, the melody of prosperity plays through you without interruption. And what does this look like in the physical world? It looks like ease. It looks like opportunities appearing at the right time. It looks like bills paid with grace. It looks like people showing up to help without you asking. It looks like joy without reason. That is the fruit of divine alignment life, flowing in rhythm with God's intention. So each morning, as you wake, before your mind fills with noise, say aloud, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Feel those words as truth, not as wish. Feel them vibrating through your entire being. Let them be your heartbeat, your breath, your rhythm. Move through the day knowing that divine supply is the air around you, and you can never run out of air. And now that you understand the rhythm of divine supply, the ease, the gratitude, the speech that sustains it, we go one step higher. For the highest truth of all is that you are not simply a receiver of God's provision, you are a co-creator of it. The psalm doesn't just remind you of what God can do, it reminds you of what God can do through you. In the next section, I will show you how to speak not merely to God, but as God, how to recognize that every word you speak in truth is the Word made flesh, and that you and the infinite are one in creative power. There is a sacred moment that comes after the practice, after the speaking, after the test, after the rhythm has steadied inside you, when you no longer speak to God but find that you are speaking with God. The separation dissolves. The voice that once sounded like yours begins to sound like something larger, older, endless. You realize that every word of truth you've ever spoken has not been a plea to heaven but an echo of heaven itself. That is the mystery and the glory of co-creation. You and the infinite have never been apart. The same breath that formed the stars flows through your lungs. The same word that said, "Let there be light," moves upon your tongue. The psalm is the bridge that leads you to that realization, and once you cross it, you can never again believe in lack, in loneliness, or in chance. When I first discovered this law, I was astonished by its simplicity. I had been taught to pray for things, to beg for help, to cry out for provision, but Spirit revealed to me that begging is denial. To beg is to declare separation. To command in love is to declare oneness. And so I began to speak differently. I stopped saying, "God, please give," and I started saying, "God expresses through me now." The change was immediate. The atmosphere around me thickened with peace. Money came, but more than money came a new sense of companionship with the divine. I was no longer walking beneath God, hoping to be noticed. I was walking with God, moving in step, co-creating every moment through my word. You see, creation is not something that happened in a distant past, it is happening now. The same divine mind that spoke the world into being still speaks through everyone who dares to align with it. The psalm is your proof. It does not describe a far-off deity. It describes the inner Christ consciousness, guiding, providing, overflowing. When you say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," you are not referring to someone outside yourself. You are naming the law of your own higher mind, the part of you that already knows where every blessing is stored. When you say, "He restoreth my soul," you are commanding your own inner vibration to return to harmony. When you say, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life," you are programming divine law to trail your steps with increase. This is co-creation in action, the word of God spoken through the consciousness of man. Now, here is something that may surprise you. The moment you speak a word of truth, the whole universe adjusts to make that word real. The invisible hosts, the laws of nature, the currents of time, even the thoughts of others begin to reorganize. You may not see it at first, but the rearrangement has begun. I call it the silent obedience of substance. Substance is the raw material of spirit. It hears every vibration of faith and moves instantly to fulfill it. When you say, "My cup runneth over," you are instructing that substance to expand the form of your life to hold more good. The cup is your consciousness. The overflow is the evidence that you have recognized your oneness with Source. Every desire you have ever held has been God's idea whispering through you, saying, "I wish to express myself in this way." Desire is not greed, it is guidance. It is divine mind nudging you toward new expression. The problem is never the desire, it is the doubt that follows it. Doubt says, "Who am I to want this?" Faith replies, "You are the instrument through which God fulfills His own good pleasure." When you claim your desires as divine instructions, you stop apologizing for them and begin allowing them. You stop asking, "Will this happen?" and start saying, "It is done." That is what I mean when I say co-creation, you and God speaking in unison. Faith as the bridge between the unseen idea and its visible form. Let me tell you about a woman who learned this truth. She was an artist, brilliant but struggling, convinced that God had given her talent but not opportunity. I told her, "You must stop seeing God as the employer and yourself as the servant. See yourself as the outlet through which divine beauty longs to appear." I asked her to read Psalm 23 every morning, not as comfort but as identity. When she reached the words, "He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake," I told her to declare, "God paints through me now, His name is glorified through my art." She did this for 7 days. On the 8th, she was offered a commission that changed her entire career. She said, "It felt like grace," and I said, "It was law. Grace is law understood." That is the nature of divine partnership. When you act from unity, everything acts with you. Doors open, not because you force them, but because the energy behind them recognizes its own reflection in your vibration. The universe rushes to meet the one who knows his own authority. The psalm teaches this authority through its rhythm of assurance. Every line is a declaration of identity. I am guided, I am supplied, I am overflowing. You must speak it until it stops feeling like hope and starts feeling like fact. When it becomes fact in your vibration, the material world can no longer resist. You may ask, "Florence, does this mean I am God?" And I will answer, you are the expression of God. The wave is not the ocean, but it is of the ocean. The current that moves the wave is the same current that stirs the sea. When you speak in alignment with divine mind, the entire ocean of spirit moves behind your word. That is why small affirmations carry infinite power. They are backed by the totality of the divine. Now, let me give you a practice that seals this realization. Each morning, before you begin your day, close your eyes and breathe as if you are breathing the light of God itself. Feel that light filling every cell. Then speak these words aloud. The words I speak are the words of the infinite. They go forth and accomplish that which they are sent to do. I and the Father are one. After that, read Psalm 23 slowly, line by line, as if the voice you hear is not your own but the voice of spirit within you. Imagine every word setting creation in motion. Do this for 7 mornings, and you will feel a shift so profound that you will no longer question whether God hears you. You will know that God speaks through you. When you reach this point, miracles cease to astonish you. They become the normal, natural outcome of divine law. The rent is paid, the opportunity appears, the illness fades, the friend arrives, and you do not say, "What a miracle." You say, "Of course." The of course consciousness is the highest form of faith. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. You are not surprised when you inhale and exhale. Why should you be surprised when your good returns to you in perfect measure? That is how natural abundance becomes once you live as a co-creator. So I say to you now, release the last remnants of begging and step fully into command. Do not ask for supply, declare it. Do not hope for success, expect it. Do not search for guidance, acknowledge that you are already guided. Speak as God speaks, let there be light, and light appears. Speak as Jesus spoke. Thank you, Father, that thou hast heard me, and I know that thou hearest me always. Speak as the psalmist spoke, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And as you speak, know that these are not borrowed words, they are your words, spoken by the divine through you. Once you know this, lack cannot return, fear cannot stay. You will have entered the consciousness of completion, where every thought becomes seed and every seed bears fruit. You will look at your life and see divine intelligence shining through everything you touch, and you will smile with the quiet certainty of one who has remembered the oldest truth in the universe. God is not late. God is not far. God is the Word made flesh in you. And now, as we close this teaching, I want you to bring everything together: the 7 days, the psalm, the flow, the test, the rhythm, the realization of divine partnership, and seal it with one final declaration. For this is not the end of a lesson, but the beginning of a covenant between you and your spoken word, a covenant that will keep prosperity flowing long after these 7 days have passed. And now, beloved soul, we come to the close of this journey, the sealing of your word, the covenant between you and the infinite law of supply. The covenant is not a contract written in ink, nor an oath spoken under pressure. It is the silent knowing between your spirit and God's spirit that you are one. It is the realization that every good thing that has ever been, is now, and ever shall be, is already yours in the invisible and is made visible through your spoken faith. This covenant does not begin when you finish your 7 days. It begins the moment you decide to believe. These 7 days are not a countdown. They are an awakening, a sacred rhythm of remembrance. For within 7 days, the law completes its work of renewal. The old pattern of lack dissolves, the new pattern of abundance is written upon the walls of your consciousness, and your life begins to hum with the same vibration as heaven itself. So, as we stand at this threshold together, I ask you to breathe deeply and remember everything we have spoken. The psalm that carries divine rhythm, the word that commands substance, the test that refines faith, the flow that restores circulation, the realization that you and the infinite are one mind in action. This is your covenant. You are now a conscious participant in divine supply. From this moment forward, you will never again speak from fear, for fear is a lie about God. You will never again beg, for begging denies the oneness that already is. You will never again look to outer means as your source, for the source of all supply is within. You are now a keeper of the word, a custodian of creative speech, and a living channel through which spirit moves freely. I want you to understand something profound. The psalm you have spoken these 7 days was never about money alone. It was about remembrance. It was the divine mind using words to call you back to yourself, to show you that all provision, all peace, all prosperity, all power live within you because they live in God. Money is only the shadow of divine supply, a mirror reflecting the state of your inner abundance. When the shadow increases, it's because the light within you has grown brighter. When it fades, it's because fear has dimmed the flame, but even then, the flame never goes out. It waits for you to speak again, for your word to reignite the rhythm. I have said throughout this lesson that God is never late, and I say it once more now. There is no delay in divine mind. All delay is mental misalignment. Once you realign, the floodgates open. Many will find that by the end of the 7th day, visible evidence of supply will have appeared: unexpected checks, opportunities, gifts, new energy, clear intuition. But even if it takes a day longer, a week longer, do not waver. You are not waiting on time, you are living in eternity, where everything already exists. The good you desire is finished, complete, and waiting for your recognition. Speak the psalm until your recognition becomes reality, and then keep speaking, not to make it happen, but to celebrate that it has. You may say, "Florence, what if I forget? What if fear returns?" And I will tell you gently, it will. Fear will knock again, as it always does, dressed in different disguises. But now you know what to do. You will not open the door. You will bless it and speak truth. You will say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," and the vibration of those words will close that door softly and completely. This covenant is not a vow of perfection, it is a promise of remembrance. Every time you remember, the law resumes its perfect work. Let us, then, seal this teaching with a final declaration, a spoken word of power that affirms your union with the infinite flow of abundance. Repeat after me with calm assurance, not as a plea, but as truth already lived. I am one with the infinite, and the infinite is one with me. My supply is inexhaustible, my prosperity is sure, my peace is eternal. Every word I speak is law, and the law responds instantly in perfect ways. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. My cup runneth over, and divine love now restores to me everything I thought I had lost. Money flows to me easily and continuously, under grace and in perfect order. Every need is met before I even ask. Every door I knock upon opens wide. I live in the rhythm of divine supply, and I walk in peace all the days of my life. Say that each morning when you wake, and again before sleep, for 7 days and beyond. Speak it as a reminder, not a request. You are not trying to convince the universe it already knows who you are. You are simply reminding your mind of its own divinity. Now, as this covenant settles within you, I want you to feel gratitude rising, not the gratitude of relief, but the gratitude of realization. Feel how light your heart is now that you no longer have to chase good. Feel how strong your spirit is now that you no longer believe in lack. Feel how natural prosperity feels when you stop resisting it. You are no longer the seeker, you are the sower. Every word you speak is seed, and the harvest is certain. The psalm was the beginning, but this rhythm is forever. Carry it into your days, your work, your relationships, your rest. Let it color the way you think about everything. When you receive, bless it. When you give, bless it. When you spend, bless it. When you see others prosper, bless them, for their abundance proves the law is working for you as well. Live from the consciousness of completion, and the visible will always mirror the invisible. And when life offers its inevitable surprises, when the winds of change blow strong, remember the shepherd of the psalm. Remember that divine order guides every step, that you cannot be lost, that even in uncertainty you are led beside still waters. This covenant does not protect you from life, it aligns you with life's perfection. You will still grow, still learn, still expand, but you will do so with grace, not struggle. You will no longer ask, "When will my good come?" Because you will have discovered the secret of the ages. Your good never left, it was waiting for your word. So, as you step out into this next moment, speak softly to yourself with that same rhythm that began this journey. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Say it once for memory. Say it twice for rhythm. Say it thrice for mastery. And then, say nothing more, let the silence complete the sentence. For in that silence, the law moves, and your world obeys. Now, if this teaching has awakened something within you, if you feel that pulse of faith stirring in your chest, then stay with me for what comes next. Because this psalm was the doorway, but the next revelation will teach you how to keep that door open forever. In my next message, the words that turn any bank account into a fountain, I will show you the 3 money sentences that never fail, the exact declarations that magnetize continual flow and make prosperity your permanent state. You have spoken your psalm, now you will learn the daily words that sustain it. Click, watch, and let's walk deeper into the language of divine wealth together. And until then, remember this truth with which we began and now complete. God isn't late, He's waiting on your word. Speak it with love, speak it with power, speak it with faith, and watch as money flows like water, endlessly, effortlessly, under grace and in perfect ways. And though our 7 days have come to their end in number, in truth, they have only just begun in spirit. For divine law does not count by clocks or calendars, it moves by consciousness, by recognition, by the eternal pulse of the soul. You have now entered the timeless rhythm where giving and receiving are one continuous motion, where words no longer fall to the ground but rise as wings of command, where your breath itself becomes a prayer that never ceases, even in silence. This is the continuum of supply, the unending flow of good that has no beginning and no end. You may think of it as a fountain, but it is more than that. It is the very breath of God, inhaling through you and exhaling as the abundance of your world. When you speak the psalm, when you live it, when you carry its truth into your daily movement, you step into that continuum. You begin to feel that there is no gap between thought and manifestation, no separation between word and result. Everything begins to answer you more swiftly because everything recognizes your vibration as the voice of the source. You will find that the simple becomes sacred, the walk to your door, the handling of a coin, the breath before a conversation, all of it hums with divine energy. You will sense the invisible arranging itself before you like a carpet of light. You will know, as I came to know, that life has never been against you, that there were never any obstacles, only unread instructions waiting for your command. Every soul that has ever awakened to this law has discovered the same paradox. that the more you let go, the more you receive. When you cease to clutch, life rushes in to fill your open hands. When you stop worrying, the law takes your place at the helm. When you rest in faith, invisible servants go forth, doing for you what you once strained to do for yourself. I have watched this in countless lives. A woman who once feared poverty became a benefactor to others. A man who lost everything found wealth returning through a single idea spoken in faith. And over, the same pattern repeats. When they surrendered their fear and trusted the rhythm, the current of supply carried them further than effort ever could. Do you see now that the psalm is not a ritual but a revelation? It is the formula of divine order expressed through simple words. The shepherd, the pastures, the still waters, the overflowing cup, all symbols of the inner condition that draws the outer form. When you read it with eyes of faith, you see, not poetry but principle. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, means peace first, prosperity second. He restoreth my soul, means alignment before appearance. My cup runneth over, means that increase is not the reward of labor, but the byproduct of harmony. The psalm is the law of vibration written in the language of devotion. Now, let me speak plainly, for truth is always simple. Your prosperity will continue in the exact measure that you remain in gratitude and command. The day you begin to speak lack again, the law, faithful as ever, will obey. It has no preference. It simply reflects. So keep your speech holy, let your words be blessings, your tone soft with assurance. When you see a challenge, declare order. When you sense confusion, declare clarity. When you feel fear, declare love. These are the maintenance tools of divine wealth, the quiet disciplines that keep the continuum open. And when you give as though you are releasing sunlight into the world, knowing that light always returns to its source. Give freely, joyfully, without the shadow of loss. Whether it is money, kindness, attention, or forgiveness, let it flow through you as easily as breath. You are not losing, you are circulating. Remember, every breath you exhale is proof that you trust the next inhale. So too with money, love, and opportunity, they must move to remain alive. There will come a day, perhaps sooner than you think, when you will look at your life and realize that you no longer think of money as money at all. It will have become a symbol of energy, a servant of intention, a tool of love. You will handle it without attachment and release it without fear, knowing it will return multiplied. You will begin to measure your wealth not by numbers but by peace. You will walk through the world quietly rich, quietly radiant, quietly unbothered. The psalm will no longer be words you recite. It will be the hum beneath your every heartbeat. I remember when that shift happened to me. I was sitting by a window, reading by candlelight, and I felt an immense calm settle over me. I realized that the supply I had been teaching about for years was not something outside me, it was the very life within me. The same divine substance that pulsed through the stars was pulsing through my blood, and I laughed aloud. I said, I cannot be poor because God cannot be poor. And from that day forward, I never was. It wasn't the laughter that made me rich, it was the revelation that there was never any separation between God and Florence, between creator and creation, between source and supply. That is where I want you to arrive, to that unshakable knowing that wherever you stand, God stands, and where God stands, lack cannot exist. This is your inheritance, to live in perpetual communion with the divine law that formed you. Every time you speak your psalm, you renew that communion. Every time you thank, you strengthen it. Every time you give, you widen it. The law does not tire, does not waver, does not forget. It is infinite intelligence unfolding itself as your life. So let us close as we began, with the word that cannot fail. Say it with me now, slowly, with conviction that fills the air around you like fragrance. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I live in the house of divine abundance forever. My word is power, my faith is law, my life is proof. I walk in peace, and all that is mine by divine right appears now, under grace, in perfect ways. And as you let those words linger in the quiet, imagine them leaving your mouth as light, moving into the unseen, circling the globe, blessing everyone and everything they touch before returning home to you multiplied. This is how divine supply circulates outward in love, inward in blessing, forever and ever, without end. And now, as you rise from this moment, know that the covenant is sealed, the rhythm is established, the law is alive. You have spoken your psalm, you have awakened the current. From this day forward, everything that concerns you will prosper, everything you touch will multiply, and every need will meet its answer before you even call. For this is the eternal continuum of supply, and you are its living expression. And now, as I bring this teaching to its highest note, I want you to understand something that most people never realize until their final breath. Life was never meant to be a series of crises followed by miracles. It was meant to be one continuous miracle. Supply was never meant to come in waves that rise and fall with fear. It was meant to flow unbroken, like a river that never runs dry. That river is not somewhere out there in the distance, it runs through you. Beneath your thoughts, beneath your heartbeat, beneath even the surface of your desires. It is the current of divine intelligence, and it has been moving since before you were born. Every time you speak truth, you align with it. Every time you speak fear, you step out of its flow. But even then, the river does not stop. It waits, patient and eternal, ready for your next word of faith to bring you back into its current. This is the secret of the psalm and of every true word ever spoken. God never withholds. We withhold by doubting, by clinging, by looking to the shadow instead of the light. The moment you look back to the source, the moment you remember that supply is spiritual and not material, the current restores itself. It doesn't matter how long you've felt lack, how heavy the debt, how delayed the opportunity, the river has never slowed. It is you who has paused, you who have doubted, you who have dammed the flow with fear. But the law is merciful, for the moment you say, "Let there be flow again," the waters rush forward as though they had never stopped. That is why manifestation can happen in an instant, because there was never any distance between you and your good, only disbelief. I have lived this truth too many times to doubt it. I have seen men who thought they had reached their end wake up to new beginnings overnight. I have seen women who thought they had been abandoned find themselves surrounded by provision from every side. I have seen opportunities that seemed impossible arrive with the ease of a whisper, and every time the pattern is the same. They speak, they believe, they let go, and the river flows. There is no magic, no trick, no secret other than the alignment of consciousness. The river obeys the vibration of faith like iron obeys the magnet. The psalm tunes you to that vibration. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That one line alone is the sound of perfect alignment. When you speak it, you declare the end of struggle. You affirm guidance, sufficiency, peace. You affirm that every step you take is ordered, that the river knows where to turn, that every rock in your path has already been rounded by grace. And when you speak it daily, it becomes your rhythm. You begin to feel it in your bones, in your breathing, in the spaces between your thoughts. You begin to walk differently, lighter, as though something unseen carries you, because something does. Now, I must tell you something from my heart. There will still be days when appearances try to tempt you. You will wake and find the outer world shouting its old song of delay, limitation, and fear. And in those moments, you will have a choice to speak from memory or from mastery. Memory says, "It's happening again." Mastery says, "I have already spoken, and my word stands." Memory reacts to the storm. Mastery speaks to it. When the waters rise, do not fight them. Speak peace. Say aloud, "This is the river of my good. It is carrying me to a higher shore." And then rest. The river knows its way better than you do. When you live this way, the entire texture of life changes. You no longer measure by outcomes, you measure by alignment. You no longer chase after good, you let good chase after you. The psalm says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." That means you can stop running, you can stop chasing blessings like a beggar knocking at every door. The blessings are already behind you, following, waiting for you to slow down enough to be caught, and when you do, you'll laugh. You'll realize you were never the pursuer, you were the pursued. That is what I want for you, to live as one who is pursued by good, to walk so aligned with divine order that prosperity has to hurry to keep up with you. To rest so deeply in faith that miracles start arriving quietly, without fanfare, because they no longer surprise you. To reach this place, gratitude becomes your constant language. You thank God not because something new has happened, but because you are aware of what has always been happening. You stop asking, "Will I be taken care of?" and begin to say, "I am always cared for." That shift of awareness is everything. It turns scarcity into surplus, delay into divine timing, confusion into direction. And you will notice something extraordinary. As your own consciousness expands, your prosperity will begin to bless others automatically. You won't have to preach or convince anyone. People will feel it when they are near you. They will feel peace, possibility, and permission to believe again. Your very presence will be a psalm. They will hear your faith before you ever speak a word. That is how the divine law multiplies itself. The current that flows through you will spill into others, and soon their rivers will begin to flow too. That is the divine plan. One awakened soul awakening another, until the entire world remembers that it was never lost, only asleep. So now I ask you to make this your daily vow, not as ritual, but as recognition. When you wake each morning, before you touch your phone, before you check your bank, before you remember the demands of the world, speak these words into the silence. The river of divine supply flows through me now. Every cell of my being is alive with abundance. Every breath I take expands my prosperity. Every step I walk is guided by divine order. There is no delay in the mind of God. There is no lack in the heart of God. There is no separation between me and my good. I live in the current of endless provision, and my cup runneth over forever. Speak those words, and then listen. Feel how your energy rises, how peace fills your chest, how gratitude begins to hum like a quiet melody in the back of your mind. That feeling is not imagination, it is alignment. It is the evidence of law in motion. It is the sound of the river moving through you. Again, sweeping away the residue of fear and leaving only clarity, confidence, and calm. And when you walk out into the day, carry that awareness like a crown. Every face you meet, every task you perform, every coin you touch, see it all as the living body of God expressing abundance through you. Bless every transaction, bless every exchange, bless every movement of energy as the perfect rhythm of circulation. You will begin to see life differently. You will no longer feel separate from what you desire, because you will know that desire and fulfillment are the same motion, two ends of one current. This is what I mean when I say the river never runs dry. It cannot, because it is infinite. It cannot, because it is God. And as long as you speak truth, as long as you remember your psalm, as long as you live in gratitude, you will never stand beside an empty shore again. You will stand in the middle of the river, surrounded by its abundance, carried by its strength, refreshed by its grace. And from that place, you will look at the world not as something to conquer, but as something to bless. So let us close our eyes now and speak together one final affirmation, not as students, but as masters of the word. I am one with the river of divine life. I am carried by it, nourished by it, surrounded by it. It cannot fail, for it is God Himself flowing through me. I release all fear of lack, for I know that every need is already met. I am no longer a seeker of good, I am an expression of it. Wherever I walk, the river flows. Wherever I speak, the law responds. Wherever I am, abundance is. And as you finish speaking, let there be silence, sweet, sacred silence, for it is in that silence that the next current begins to rise. You have not reached an ending, beloved, you have entered the eternal stream, and it will carry you now forever. If you could see as I see, with the eyes of spirit, you would behold that your life is already surrounded by a vast circle of light, the circumference of divine activity that stretches far beyond the horizon of your physical senses. It moves with perfect precision, spinning quietly, endlessly, a halo of answered prayers, fulfilled promises, invisible hands arranging every detail of your unfolding story. That circle is your word made flesh. It is the living echo of every declaration you have spoken in faith. And as you continue in this practice of conscious speech, that circle widens, glows brighter, and begins to include more and more of the world around you, until you realize that you have not merely changed your life, you have changed the atmosphere in which you live. This is the final revelation of the psalm. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Not because you earned it, not because you chased it, but because your vibration summoned it. The circle of light that surrounds you is the visible form of that mercy, and it can never fail. In the human world, we are taught to think in straight lines, cause here, effect there, beginning, middle, and end. But divine law is circular. It moves in perfect return. What you send out, you receive. What you affirm, you live. What you bless, blesses you. The psalm describes this circle in every verse, though few ever notice it. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, that is the receiving of rest. He restoreth my soul, that is the return of energy. My cup runneth over, that is the overflow that circles back as more to give. Life, when seen through divine understanding, is not a ladder to climb or a finish line to cross, it is a circle to dwell within, a rhythm to surrender to, a harmony to sustain. You are not running toward your good, you are turning in its light. When you live this way, you stop trying to hold things. You let them pass through, trusting that everything you release returns magnified. This is why forgiveness is not weakness, it is divine intelligence. To forgive is to break the angular line of resentment and restore the circle of flow. Resentment blocks, forgiveness clears. The moment you say, I bless and release, the energy you are holding captive comes home as peace. Many people ask me, Florence, why must I bless those who hurt me? And I answer, because they hold part of your circulation. Until you bless them, that part remains frozen. The circle of supply cannot complete itself through anger or judgment. It can only complete itself through love. Now, let us bring this down from the invisible to the visible, because spiritual law is always practical. When you walk through your day, you will notice that every transaction, whether of money, time, attention, or affection, is part of the circle. If you treat it as sacred, it will bless you. If you treat it as ordinary, it will obey indifference. The clerk who hands you change, the friend who gives you a compliment, the stranger who opens a door, these are not coincidences. They are moments of divine exchange. Each is an opportunity to affirm the flow. Say silently, I bless this exchange. It multiplies in perfect ways. The more consciously you participate in these small moments, the more quickly your outer world will reflect abundance. Life loves to respond to recognition. The psalm, when spoken daily, conditions you to recognize the sacred in everything. It turns ordinary life into liturgy. The Lord is my shepherd, that is leadership in every step. I shall not want, that is sufficiency in every encounter. He anointeth my head with oil, that is wisdom in every thought. When you live in that awareness, your days take on a quiet radiance. You may not see gold falling from the sky, but you will feel the gold of peace saturating every hour. You will notice that people seem kinder, that solutions appear faster, that what used to feel heavy now feels effortless. This is not chance, it is the circle of divine energy completing itself through your consciousness. One of my students once described it perfectly. She said, Florence, it's like I can feel the air itself smiling. I told her, that is because you are smiling inside. The air is only mirroring your vibration. This is the essence of the circle, life reflecting life, spirit reflecting spirit, word reflecting word. There is no division, no delay, no distance. When you live this truth, you begin to sense that you are walking in a field of answered prayers. Before you call, it is already given. Before you need, it is already supplied. The delay between desire and demonstration shortens until they are one. You think it, you feel it, and there it is. And yet, I tell you this, as the circle expands, humility must deepen. For the law gives freely, but demands responsibility. The more light you hold, the more light you must share. If you hoard it, it dims. If you circulate it, it multiplies. This is why the psalm ends not with wealth or success, but with dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. The house of the Lord is the state of perpetual giving and receiving. It is not a building, it is consciousness itself. To dwell there is to live as a channel, not a container. It is to wake each morning asking not, what can I get? But what can I give that allows the law to keep moving through me? That question is the highest prosperity practice there is. I remember once, after a period of tremendous abundance in my own life, I sat quietly and asked, Spirit, what now? And the answer came as clear as if it had been spoken aloud. Give more. So I began giving, teaching freely, blessing others, circulating more of my resources, and the more I gave, the greater the return. The law had found a wider circle through me. You can do the same. When the overflow comes, and it will, don't clutch it. Circulate it. Let it become the evidence of the river still flowing. So as this message draws toward its silence, I invite you to see your life, not as a line you are racing along, but as a circle of radiant light expanding endlessly. Stand in its center and declare, "The circle of divine supply is complete and perfect. It has no holes, no breaks, no losses. Every word I speak expands it, every act of love strengthens it, every breath I take fills it, I give freely and I receive fully. I dwell in the house of abundance, now and forevermore." Say it until the circle becomes so real that you feel it physically around your body, your home, your work, your loved ones glowing, humming, unbroken. That feeling is the truth, and the truth will never leave you. For remember, beloved, you began this journey speaking the psalm for 7 days, but now the psalm speaks through you for eternity. Wherever you walk, it walks. Wherever you rest, it rests. The Lord is your shepherd still, and you shall not want, not now, not ever. Every true word spoken in faith continues to travel through the universe, long after your tongue has ceased to move. The vibration never dies. It circles, expands, deepens, gathers, multiplies, and then returns to you at the moment of perfect readiness. This is the divine cycle of return, the eternal echo of creation. It is written in the very structure of the universe. What goes out in truth cannot be lost, it can only magnify. Every affirmation you have ever uttered, every prayer spoken in certainty, every quiet thank you breathed in the midst of fear, continues to live in the invisible, working its way back to you in forms you can recognize and hold. This is why I say that faith is never wasted. You may think a declaration vanished into silence, but the silence is the womb of manifestation, not its grave. The infinite does not forget. It remembers every act of love, every word of blessing, every seed of gratitude, and it nurtures them in the secret soil of spirit until the time of fruiting. So never say, "It didn't work." The law cannot fail. The only question is whether you have stayed long enough in harmony for your own harvest to meet you. I have seen people abandon their declarations just before the field began to blossom. They grew impatient, mistook gestation for barrenness, and walked away. But the soil had never stopped working, it only waited for their return. When they finally remembered and spoke again, the ground released its abundance as though no time had passed. Spirit does not punish delay, it simply waits for recognition. The psalm you have been speaking for 7 days has already begun this infinite return. Its words are moving now through your affairs, your relationships, your body, your unseen opportunities. They are gathering substance, aligning conditions, softening hearts, opening doors. Some results you will see quickly, because the path is clear. Others will circle farther out and come back later, richer for the journey. You may forget them, but they will not forget you. That is why sometimes a blessing seems to arrive out of nowhere, long after you stop thinking about it. It did not come from nowhere, it came from the Word, finally finding its appointed time to return. I learned this truth many years ago in a way that left me forever changed. A woman once came to me in despair. She had been affirming her right work, but after months without success, she stopped, convinced that her words were useless. I told her, "Nothing spoken in truth ever disappears, it merely waits for you to believe again." I asked her to repeat her psalm once more, not as a weary exercise but as a homecoming. She obeyed, and within a week, an old acquaintance wrote to her, offering a position that suited her perfectly. When she told me, she said, "Florence, I feel as though the words came back carrying everything I had hoped for." I smiled and said, "They did. You sent them out years ago, and now they have found you." Every declaration you make becomes part of this eternal exchange. When you say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," you set a rhythm in motion that cannot reverse itself. That line travels forward, gathers proof, and circles back as manifestation. This is the nature of divine substance. It always returns to its point of origin, carrying multiplication with it. So be deliberate with your words, for each one is a seed that will return as fruit. Speak no idle phrase, no casual prophecy of lack or limitation, for the soil of the universe makes no distinction between humor and faith. It hears vibration, not intention. Even jest can plant weeds if it carries the tone of fear. Guard your garden and speak only what you wish to harvest. The longer I live in this truth, the more I see that there is no separation between speaking, waiting, and receiving. They are one continuous act. The moment you speak, the receiving has already begun. The waiting is not delay, it is digestion, the law assimilating your word into matter. That is why impatience weakens demonstration, it interrupts the digestion. If you plant a seed and dig it up each morning to check its progress, you strangle its growth. Faith is the hand that covers the seed with peace and walks away, knowing it will sprout. The psalm teaches this surrender perfectly. Its every line is an act of release. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, rest. He leadeth me beside still waters, trust. He restoreth my soul, receive. You speak it, and then you rest in the assurance that it is done. Now, I must tell you a beautiful paradox. The more often you speak the psalm, the less you will need to. The repetition is not for God, it is for the mind. Once your mind has absorbed the truth so deeply that it beats within you like a second pulse, the words become unnecessary. They transform into vibration, silent yet constant. You will feel it as ease in your body, as calm confidence in your decisions, as peace in your breath. You will reach the point where everything you do is prayer, where your thoughts are so aligned that every act becomes a declaration of abundance. That is the final stage of mastery, to live as the word, not merely to speak it. At that level, you will notice that life begins to return gifts faster than you can give them away. You will think of someone and they will appear. You will need something and it will arrive before you can ask. You will bless someone in your heart and they will call to thank you for what they cannot explain. You will walk through the world in a state of quiet awe, for you will finally understand that creation is not occasional, it is constant. You are always creating. The only question is whether you are creating in fear or in faith, in separation or in unity, in scarcity or in overflow. The psalm, faithfully spoken, keeps you in overflow. And when you do falter, and you will, for we are human, when doubt whispers or fear rises or appearances seem unkind, do not scold yourself, simply return to the word. Return to your psalm like one returning to the rhythm of the sea. Say again, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," and the tide will carry you back into harmony. The law does not resent your forgetfulness, it rejoices in your remembering. Each return strengthens the bond, deepens the current, widens the circle. So as you go forth from this teaching, remember that every word you speak now enters the eternal round. It leaves you shining with faith and comes back brighter still. You are part of an infinite dialogue between creator and creation, between spirit and speech, between the inner and the outer, and there will never be an end to that conversation. Now breathe deeply and feel the truth of this moment. The circle is complete, the current is steady, the word is alive, and the law is sure. Say softly but with conviction, "My word is the living seed of God. It goes forth in power and returns fulfilled. I cannot be in want, for my supply is infinite and continuous. The Lord is my shepherd, now and forever, and my life overflows with good, and so it is, and so it shall be, world without end." Even as the words of truth fade into the quiet, there is a light that remains, a steady radiance that does not belong to morning or evening, a glow that neither circumstance nor time can diminish. It is the light of understanding, the illumination of divine law, the gentle yet unyielding brilliance that dawns when the soul remembers its source. This light is older than fear, stronger than doubt, and more patient than any question the human heart has ever asked. It is the light that has accompanied you from the beginning, though you may have walked in the shadow and called it night. Every time you have spoken the psalm, every time you have declared, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," this light has flared a little brighter in the depths of your being. Now, as you rest in this awareness, it fills your entire consciousness. It becomes not something you reach for, but something you live from. What happens in the silence after revelation is as holy as the revelation itself. It is the moment when knowledge becomes knowing, when truth ceases to be a phrase and becomes a pulse, when the boundaries between mind and matter, between human and divine, dissolve completely. You are no longer the one who prays, you are the prayer. You are no longer the one who seeks, you are the fulfillment of the seeking. This is the final reward of persistence, the moment when faith no longer requires effort because it has become identity. You realize that you never needed to summon God. God was the consciousness from which you were summoning. You never needed to attract supply, you were supply in expression. You never needed to become light, you were always made of it. I have watched this transformation countless times, and each time it fills me with awe. I have seen those who once trembled with fear of the future stand tall in unshakable peace. I have seen those who had spent years chasing money suddenly find themselves surrounded by ease, laughter, and provision. I have seen the weary become radiant, the uncertain become certain, the struggling become still, and what changed? Only one thing: they spoke truth long enough for truth to speak back. They held the rhythm of faith until it became the rhythm of their breath. They stopped believing in distance, and the universe, obedient as ever, closed the gap. Understand this: the law does not reward effort, it responds to alignment. Effort says, I must do something to earn my good. Alignment says, my good is already done. The moment you align, the power that has always been active rushes through you like electricity through a conductor. You do not need to push it, you only need to stop resisting it. That is why peace is the highest form of productivity. In peace, you become transparent to divine energy. Nothing obstructs the flow, nothing delays the fulfillment. It moves through you, around you, beyond you, blessing everything it touches. When I say you are the light, I do not speak in metaphor. The very cells of your body vibrate with that energy. When you speak the word, the atoms respond. They shift to reflect the pattern of the divine idea behind your declaration. That is why healing follows faith. That is why supply appears after thanksgiving. That is why forgiveness opens doors that no human key could turn. The outer world is light slowed down. Your word is the switch that adjusts its brightness. Every time you affirm truth, you increase the voltage of the universe itself. And yet, even this power must be wrapped in gentleness. For light does not shout, it shines. It does not argue with darkness, it reveals it to be nothing. When you walk in this understanding, you no longer fight conditions. You no longer pray against evil or struggle against lack. You simply stand in the radiance of truth, and everything false dissolves. You become a living benediction, an answer without a question, a calm so profound that it disarms all discord. This is what the psalm means by He prepareth a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. The table is peace, and the enemies are illusions. You sit down at the feast of abundance while the shadows flee, for they cannot approach light. And so I ask you now to make your life a sanctuary of light. Speak softly, walk gently, give generously, and see divinity in every face you encounter. When you handle money, treat it as a fragment of that light. It is only energy taking visible form. When you bless another, feel that light leaving your heart and returning multiplied. When you face uncertainty, close your eyes and remember, the light that guides galaxies also guides this moment. It cannot fail. There will still be ordinary days, days of errands and noise, of traffic and weather, of laughter and tears, but they will no longer feel ordinary. They will shimmer with the awareness that behind every action moves the infinite rhythm of spirit. You will find yourself pausing to listen and realizing that everything has a voice. The wind, the water, the heartbeat, the silence, all repeating the same eternal phrase, all is well. All is unfolding in perfect order. That phrase is the heartbeat of the psalm itself. When you hear it, you are hearing God speak through life. And as you continue to live in this light, something beautiful will happen. Others will be drawn to you without knowing why. They will sense peace in your presence, strength in your stillness, joy in your quiet laughter. You won't need to preach or persuade, your vibration will do the teaching. They will look at you and remember their own light. This is how divine law multiplies, it spreads by recognition. One flame lights another, and darkness diminishes not by battle but by brightness. So as I bring this message to its close, I leave you not with instruction, but with invitation. Wherever you go, carry the light. When you speak, let your words heal. When you think, let your thoughts bless. When you give, let your giving be an act of worship. When you rest, let your rest be trust. In this way, you become the living continuation of the psalm, the word made visible, the shepherd's voice walking through the world. And now, as you breathe in deeply, know this beyond all doubt: you are surrounded, filled, sustained, and carried by the light that never dimmed. It shines through every circumstance, through every appearance, through every name you have ever given to fear. It is the same yesterday, today, and forever. You cannot lose it, you cannot lessen it, you can only forget it for a moment, and even then, it remains. Speak your psalm, live your psalm, and you will remember. The Lord is your shepherd, you shall not want. The Lord is your light, you shall not fear. The Lord is your life, you shall not fall. For surely, goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life, and you shall dwell forever not in some distant heaven, but here, now, in the radiant presence of divine abundance. There is a quiet hour, often between the last whisper of night and the first breath of morning, when the veil between worlds feels thinner, and in that soft suspension, you can almost hear the hum of eternity moving through you. It is in that stillness, when all striving rests, that the soul remembers itself. The great remembrance is not learned, it is felt, like suddenly waking from a dream and realizing that what you feared was never real. The psalm was given not to make you worthy of God, but to remind you that you already are. Every line you have spoken these past 7 days, every breath charged with faith, every moment when you stood in darkness and chose to declare light, has been drawing you toward this remembrance. You are not separate. You have never been separate. The shepherd and the sheep are one consciousness, one rhythm, one eternal act of giving and receiving. When you begin to live in that remembrance, something deep within your being relaxes. The nervous striving, the endless search for security, the need to prove and to plan and to push, they dissolve like mist before the Sunday. You no longer wake up in dread of what the day may bring. You wake in the quiet assurance that life itself is conspiring for your good. The mind, once busy with worry, grows still enough to hear divine instruction. You begin to receive ideas not as anxious thoughts, but as gentle invitations. You sense a hand guiding yours, a rhythm walking beside your own steps, and you realize that what you once called coincidence is simply divine order in motion. I remember the first time I experienced this awakening. It was a day of rain, gray skies, steady drops against my window, the kind of weather that makes people feel small. I sat with my Bible open, repeating softly, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." As I spoke, something shifted. The words stopped sounding like words. They became music, vibration, substance. I felt the air around me thicken, as though the invisible had drawn closer. My body relaxed into it, my breath slowed, and for a moment I forgot what I was praying for. I simply existed, free of lack, free of effort, free of thought. When I opened my eyes, the rain had stopped. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, spilling across my table like gold. It was then I understood. The outer world was responding to the inner alignment. The light had not come from the sky, it had come from remembrance. This is what I wish for you, to reach that moment when your word is no longer something you send out, but something you live from, something you are. You see, every time you spoke the psalm, you were carving a channel through the rock of disbelief. Each repetition chipped away at the hardened layers of fear, until finally the living water could flow freely again. That water is faith, and it carries within it every answer you have ever sought. You need not chase after good. You need only stay open enough to let it rush through you. The law of supply was never about acquiring, it was about allowing. And as this truth becomes your resting place, you will notice that life begins to move in circles of completion. Old debts resolve themselves. Old relationships soften into forgiveness. Old desires either manifest or dissolve into peace. You will understand that nothing ever truly leaves you, it simply returns transformed. The opportunities you thought were gone will reappear in wiser forms, the losses you mourned will reveal themselves as preparation, and the waiting you resented will show itself as perfect timing. Every thread of your story will weave together with such precision that you will marvel at how you ever doubted. Now, when the human mind hears this, it says, "That sounds too easy," because the ego believes that power must be earned. But spiritual law is effortless, because it is natural. Effort belongs to resistance. Grace belongs to alignment. The river does not strain to flow, the flower does not struggle to bloom, the sun does not fight to shine. They express what they are. And so must you. You are an expression of divine intelligence, a vessel through which abundance, love, and peace are made visible. To block that flow with fear is to deny your own nature. To surrender is to return home. And yes, even after this remembrance, you will still walk through days of contrast. The law does not remove contrast, it uses it. Just as shadows define the light, challenge defines faith. But once you know who you are, you meet contrast differently. You no longer collapse beneath it, you rise within it. You say, even this is serving me. Even this is part of the greater unfolding. You bless what once you cursed, you thank what once you resisted, and in that act of thanksgiving, the energy shifts immediately. Gratitude is the great transformer. It turns obstacle into passage, confusion into clarity, delay into divine order. There is a reason the psalm ends with dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. It is the final symbol of remembrance. The house of the Lord is not a place you go to after life. It is the consciousness you live in now. To dwell there is to stay awake in truth. It is to know that wherever you stand, God stands also. You may change cities, jobs, companions, but you will never step outside the house, because the house is consciousness, and consciousness is infinite. I want you to take a moment right now, before the mind drifts elsewhere, and breathe. Feel the air enter your body. Feel it fill your chest, your ribs, your hands. That air is divine life animating form. Say quietly, this breath is God breathing me. That is remembrance. Every breath you take is proof that you are not alone, proof that you are sustained by a rhythm older than thought and wiser than will. This rhythm is the shepherd guiding you, the law fulfilling you, the love maintaining you. So from this day forward, let the remembrance guide your living. When you rise in the morning, speak the psalm not as ritual but as identity. Say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, and mean, I walk today as divine sufficiency in action. When you meet the world, let your words be few but full, your silence radiant with knowing. Let your presence carry the same peace you once begged for. And when you lay down at night, bless the day without judgment, for every event seen and unseen has conspired for your good. You will sleep not in exhaustion, but in reverence. You will wake, and the world will look different not because it has changed, but because you have remembered. You will feel yourself a part of everything, moving as one with all creation, and you will know, beyond intellect, beyond speech, that the game was never about winning or losing, earning or deserving. It was always about remembering the source, remembering the word, remembering the light, remembering for yourself. And when you remember, you will laugh softly, for you will see that heaven was never lost, it was hidden in plain sight, waiting behind every act of faith, every declaration of truth, every humble moment of surrender. And as you continue to remember, you will become remembrance itself, a walking psalm, a living benediction, a vessel of divine light pouring itself endlessly into the world. When one has walked long enough with the word, there comes a day when speech itself grows still, not from weariness, but from fulfillment. It is as though the tongue, having served its holy purpose, surrenders to the greater eloquence of silence. The word does not vanish, it descends deeper, taking root in the heart, vibrating there in perfect rhythm with the infinite. This is what I call the return to the unspoken. The psalm, the affirmations, the declarations, all of them were scaffolding for the great temple of remembrance rising within you. And when that temple is complete, when you have remembered who you are and what the word truly means, the scaffolding falls away. Silence becomes the final affirmation, for it speaks of perfect trust.